Hey gamers, what's up? It's Ed Park, aka Taugrim. We are at the Republic booth in New York Comic Con 2011, and we have with us Mr. Stephen Reid, the Senior Community Manager, aka the heat shield from the developers, from a passionate and rabid fan base. Hey Stephen, how's it going?
That's fair, I suppose. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good.
So you still have your vocal cords functioning after your day 4?
Just about, yeah. I've not had my voice completely destroyed by a show yet, but I haven't had to shout very much. That helps.
Okay, good. Well, maybe this New York crowd is a little more tame than Reputation. So
yeah, maybe.
So let's get right into it.
Sure.
At the Q&A panel, you and Daniel were talking about some really contentious decisions around race and class combinations.
Yeah.
Can you share one or two of the more juicy ones? Like you mentioned with Daniel, he didn't get his way.
He didn't get his way on, for a long time the Sith Pureblood was not supposed to be an Inquisitor, and the reason was that the Inquisitor storyline is that essentially you're a freed slave, and Sith in the period of the Old Republic are essentially kind of like aristocracy. So as I understand it, because I'm not the writer, but as I understand it, that didn't really make much sense. So he didn't want them to be available. But the trouble was, I think from testing and internal discussion, was like, if you have the name Sith in a class description, people didn't like the fact that, you know, it was like, okay, I can be a Sith warrior as a Sith, but I can't be an Inquisitor as a Sith. So he got overruled on that one.
He won some battles.
Yeah.
So what's an example of a battle that he won? You can't tell me.
Yeah.
Are there any other?
You'll never know. You know what I mean? It'll be in the game, and you won't know that. You know,
we want the juicy tidbits. That's the good stuff.
He won some. He lost others.
Okay.
So there you go.
Okay. We had some. There was something that Daniel mentioned on the panel the other day, which was interesting. He mentioned that there were 6 of something that can tank. Is that 6 of the 8 classes?
Yeah, I think he was referring to 6 of the 8 classes. I'd have to count them up. But yeah, I mean, like a Sith warrior, you can be a Juggernaut. A Jedi Knight, you can be a Guardian. The Inquisitor can be the Assassin, which is like an off-tank. Consular can be a Shadow as an off-tank. Obviously, the Trooper can be a tank. Bounty Hunter can be a tank.
Okay, so you're talking 4.
So yeah, the only ones who can't really be tanks are agents and smugglers. Yeah.
Okay, so basically the squishy guys.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, they're more the stealthy class, and the sort of, you know, they have some advantages in that regard, and obviously they can still be healers. So, you know, we balanced it up that way.
Okay, so it sounds like 4 main tank classes and 2 off tanks.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Can you talk about the difference in the mechanics for the tanking? Is it like threat generation, or how they survive damage?
I'm not an expert on this. I mean, I think it's fair to say that the sort of damage mitigation ones, you know, like the Guardian and the Juggernaut, yeah, they can be more about that, and then the Assassin and the off-tank guys are more about evasion and, you know, that sort of thing. So that's kind of the way that's been explained to me. But like I say, as not someone who plays a tank very often, you know, it's not Greek to me, but it is.
Okay, so in other words, when we're trying to hunt you down on the live servers, we shouldn't look for a tank. We should look for someone who likes the glory of DPS, because that is generally
where I'm going to be. Yeah, I'm going to definitely be a DPS. Not necessarily desperate to get the highest ranking DPS on the server or anything like that, but yeah, I'll generally be a bit more DPS because I like that straight playstyle. You know?
Well, speaking of DPS, one of the forum posters named Annabelle had a really interesting question. So the current the Flashpoint size or group size is 4.
Yep.
And so that means, you know, a tank, a healer, and then 2 DPS. And DPS tends to be the most popular class, you know, in any game. So what has the feedback been from players around having 2 out of 4 slots being for DPS?
It hasn't been bad. You know, I mean, the thing is, like, yeah, DPS does tend to be the most popular in some ways, but we have that ability for you to go sort of like pure DPS, or maybe a little bit more of a mixture depending on how you spec your character. So everybody has some DPS ability to some degree. So I think there's a little less pressure on it, like being like, okay, if you aren't a Sentinel or a Marauder, then we don't want to have you in our party, kind of thing. You know, it's a little bit more like, okay, you know, who do we want to play with, or, you know, I'd like to think that it's a little bit more balanced that way, but.
Okay. Would you say then the classes are a little bit more hybridized compared to the typical game? They're not kind of pigeonholed? Okay.
Yeah, definitely aim for that. I mean, Daniel touched on this the other day, saying that, you know, we didn't want to have a situation where at the end of the game it was kind of like, unless you're playing, you know, we don't want to pigeonhole people in the same way that the racial thing came up as well, which is like, you know, we're not going to say, like, if you're not a Zabrak Sentinel, then you're not the highest DPS in the game, and ergo we don't want to have anyone else but that, right? Because that pigeonholes you into playing a particular race, you know, looking a particular way, and we want you to be able to experience a number of different class stories, you know, without a penalty. So, you know, if you want to be a tank, then you get a number of choices, and you don't have to worry worry about, oh, I have to be a commando or, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans will be excited by that. There are some other games where, for example, if you didn't roll an orc for a warrior, you wouldn't be as good as some other, race in PvP or
Yeah, we wanted to kind of avoid that to allow everybody the chance to really, experience the different classes and the class stories, which are obviously extremely important to us.
Okay. So it sounds like what you're saying that it might support having hybrid roles in instances. So for example, maybe 2 off healers, a DPS and a tank might be able to clear
it's possible. Like, when we were speccing and putting together the demos that we did for the Eternity Vault, the operation, we had 1 main tank and then like 1 off tank, and then I guess like 2 healers and I guess maybe 4 DPS. Might be remembering wrong. But yeah, we're allowing a bit of flexibility and hopefully a better challenge in there.
Okay, so it sounds like even in a raiding context that hybrids might be viable. You're not going to have to min-max or that sort of thing to be.
Well, we're trying to avoid that feeling of like there's only 1 build, there's only 1 class. We definitely don't want to push that too much if we can avoid it.
So you guys mentioned that there isn't going to be a dungeon finder in the game. I think that was a great decision since it'll force people to get to know each other.
Yep.
On their faction server. So how are players supposed to find each other? Are they supposed to go to the social hub that you guys mentioned?
Well, we still have looking for group and that kind of thing, and we have social hubs in a lot of different places. I mean, the ones that we talked about on the panel are kind of the biggest and most elaborate. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of our feeling is that you'll find people fairly naturally in various stages throughout the game, and you should be able to progress pretty well in that regard.
There were some questions. I think the forum poster's name was ManuDragonne or Dragonne. He had some questions around customization and interaction. Will players be able to have surnames, last names?
We'll talk about surnames before launch.
Okay. How about chat bubbles above players?
Microtransactions for anyone who freaks out, for example.
Well, you could probably make a lot of money doing that. So,
but no, that's not.
What about chat bubbles above players' heads when they're having conversation at comic book film?
They're not in right now, and I'm not sure if they'll end up in at launch.
Okay.
I haven't sat down and had that conversation with the right person to say yes, no, what's our thinking on that. So yeah, I'm not too sure.
For most players, their vision is the launch is the big event, but you guys as the development crew know that for you it's a long road. Launch is just a piece of it, and then you're going to have to be there, especially for the first 3 to 6 months to make sure the game is stabilized, support the community, etc. How are you guys managing not to get burnt out? Because it's been a long road just to get here, and then
everyone deals with it in different ways. There's a lot of people trying to sneak in vacation before launch. I might be one of them. I might try and get at least a week out. So yeah, that's generally it. And we let off steam in different ways. We have fun company things that we do, and we try and maintain a pretty cool and fun office, and that's what we try and do. But it's actually it's an issue. There's an awful lot to do. There's a lot of work to be done, and we try and make sure that everyone stays on an even keel and nobody falls over, drops dead on the marathon march. So we try our best, and then I think we'll be doing a lot of sort of staggered vacation after launch. But for us, there's not really much of a Christmas plan for most of us this year, but that's okay. We'll live, and we'll have turkey in the studio, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, I hope you're able to get some much-needed vacation prior to launch, and if the forums melt the week that you're gone, I think it'll be okay. So thank you so much, Stephen. It's great talking to you.
Thanks, Ed.
For more information on Republic, you can follow me on Twitter at Taugrim, Taugrim. Take care.